Down here, some of you travel long distances. And a special thanks to George Gamina, who was gracious enough to host our event and let us use the Playhouse for our presentation. Thank you. Thank you. So if you look around, the faces on these portraits, those are the Rockefellers. And, you know, not only were they rich, but they were very instrumental and made major contributions to the world of business, finance, and also medicine. So I think it's apropos that we use the Playhouse as our backdrop for our presentation. We want to show you today what we think is a new and exciting product that will turn the medical world on its head. So as most of you know, I'm a family physician. I went to Washington University in St. Louis on a Chancellor's Honorary Scholarship. I graduated in 3 years. I went on to SUNY, and I've been practicing family medicine, traveling tropical medicine, and teaching medical students and residents ever since. That's my bio. So if you could bring on the next slide. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Rich, click it again.
Yeah, click on it now.
Click it one more.
One more.
It's not seeing your.
Not finding it.
It's not seeing your USB port. Unplug the USB cable and plug it back in.
Well, this is perfect. This is Alan's.
No.
This, pick that up.
Rich, did you have to select the display mode on your computer?
No, it happened that we put in that other flash drive.
That's Click it again. Once more. No.
Give it a second.
keep going. No. No. I only have one slide. So for years I realized there was a desperate void in the practice of medicine, especially since the introduction of the mandatory obligation to use the electronic medical record. Now, aside from the good intentions of the EMR, and John, there are some good intentions. The downside is the bureaucratic nature of the EMR, the robbing of face-to-face time with our patients, and the robbing of the doctor's time. And you just you can't even breathe in because of all the bureaucratic rules. So physicians are constantly in the need to learn. Most physicians cannot find reliable, relevant medical information fast enough to use while they're with the patient. That's the problem. And if you can get up the first slide, so great. So this is a typical day in the life of a family doctor. 3 patients. So we have 20-year-old Nancy, who's just back from a trip to Uganda after 6 months, and she comes and presents with a fever. And the trip just happened to include 2 river rafting trips. Then you have Mr. T, the 78-year-old, who won't be seeing his endocrinologist for another 6 months. And the note from his endocrinologist briefly states he has Goulegans disease. Do you know what Goulegans disease is? We'll come back to that. And that's the note that we're seeing in the EMR. And then we have 55-year-old Karen, who comes in and wants to review her endoscopy results because the gastroenterologist spoke to her when she was just coming off anesthesia. It's pretty groggy. So in the EMR, I see a pathology report that says she has eosinophilic esophagitis. So I need a little more information about each one of these cases. This is something that comes up every day of my practice. So the point I'm making is most physicians cannot find reliable, relevant medical information fast enough to use, again, while they're with the patient. So how do we make doctors smarter and respect their time constraints at the same time? So when, if you can go back. So when Mr. T came in, said, my endocrinologist says I have Goulegans disease. So I'm panicking because I've never heard of Goulegans disease. So I could try to fake it and say, oh yes, Goulegans disease, but let's talk about your cholesterol. That's one way I can handle it. Or I could sneak off to the bathroom, pull out my smartphone, and Google Goulegans disease, and of course the first 10 hits I'm going to get are the ginkgo biloba ads. Or I could grab a textbook. Or I could even pull up an electronic medical encyclopedia. But neither of these things really work while I'm with the patient. That's what I want to try to explain to you today. So there has to be a way I can get some reliable, concise information quickly. So many physicians, both primary care and specialists, buy textbooks, they buy electronic encyclopedias. They subscribe to these. I have it, my partners have it. Columbia pays for it. And then I asked my partners, I said, well, how often do you use these encyclopedias? Guess what they said? Never. I said, what do you mean never? I said, why never? They all said the same thing. It's too onerous, too time consuming. All right, so, okay, maybe my partners are listening. Because we are going to have a physician tonight who does use the electronic dictionary, but he's going to get his perspective of it. So I started asking around and doing some more research. And at NYP alone, which is New York, the faculty practice of New York Cornell Presbyterian, out of 500, or I couldn't remember if it was 500 or 1,000 doctors, 15 were using the encyclopedia. 15. Okay, they have a way of tracking it. So Columbia is buying all these licenses to the encyclopedia, and they're not being used. And, as an aside, I had a conversation with Mark McDougall, who's the COO at Columbia University Medical Center, and the Chief Medical Officer at Phelps. And when you ask them about these electronic medical encyclopedias, you get the same response, this pissed off response. Because they're paying a lot of money, and they're not sure if they're getting good numbers for it. So, if you go to the next slide. Relevant but simplified information. Not 30 pages. I don't want 30 pages on Bourgon's disease. I want to know the nuts and bolts. Collaboration. So 3 years ago, we put together some primary care physicians, a bunch of prominent medical specialists, and some outstanding computer scientists and programmers from both sides of the country. And it took us a while, right, Alan, to find the right programmers. Our team also includes several attorneys who have expertise in startup, patent, intellectual law, intellectual property. We also have some business people on our team, and they have expertise in sales, manufacturing, real estate, and finance. So we formed a company called Ironwood Medical Information Technologies, or IMIT for short. And we brought you here today to talk to you and present to you our first product called Fibonacci 11235. Well, why Fibonacci? Fibonacci is named after the natural sequence in nature and in the human body. And we are also catering to the egos of doctors, because they think if they know a word that nobody else does, that's the way to go. So I now want to introduce Alan Strongwater, our boy wonder, our super geek, and he just happens to be a world-renowned prominent surgeon. Alan Strongwater.
Thanks, Rich. So, Rich and I share the same last name. We are cousins. We didn't know about each other until Rich went to Upstate Medical Center, and my brother, who's a rheumatologist, was on the admissions committee. And so he said, Strongwater's got to be relevant. And so that's when I first knew about Rich, but I hadn't met him until he called me about this idea that he had. And personally, I think that the idea is great. It really is all about the details of how physicians can maximize their time. My experience, just so you know, Rich asked me to be the Chief Technology Officer. And so my background is as a pediatric orthopedic surgeon. I was chairman of a department with 300 people reporting, a senior vice president of medical informatics at a company that designs clinical decision support systems. I was the chief medical information officer at Maimonides for 11 years. I was an electrical engineer. And for those of you who may not know, HIMSS, H-I-M-S-S, is the Health Information Systems Society. It's the largest medical computing group in the world. I was just there in February. They have 50,000 members. And in 2003, I gave the keynote address at that meeting to 3,600 people. So really, what's our challenge? Well, the problem is that as a physician, we're being asked to do more and more, both for the patients, for documentation, for regulations, and we just don't have any more time. And so there are certain things you can't cut out. You have to read letters, notes, reports, you just have to do it. And so when Rich comes across Bourgon's disease, it takes him time, and therefore money and his own personal time, to go look it up and figure out what it is. So he had an idea about how to shorten the amount of time and improve the efficiency by creating this reading tool. And so really this meeting is to show you that we can do it. It's not done yet. We have a long way to go to really make it an incredibly powerful tool. But we can show you that it works quickly, and it's very efficient. So what Rich was talking about, purchasing is something like UpToDate. UpToDate is a fairly expensive product for a private practitioner. And my problem as a surgeon is when I go to look something up in UpToDate, it gives me an article that's 30 pages long, and I just don't have the time to read all of it. So we need a fast, reliable, and accurate way to get the meaning of unfamiliar terms and be able to communicate in a way that everyone can understand that. And the other thing is that we need to be able to drill down for more information on those subjects that we're interested in. And again, I don't want to see a 30-page article. I want thumbnails that I can get through quickly, and then if necessary, I can go to the encyclopedia and look for all of that information. So what does our software offer? Well, it reads all of the documents that a physician would upload in the background, and then it creates hyperlinks between difficult words in the document and the image compendium which we are writing. And those words become linked, visibly linked by being highlighted. And then a physician who doesn't understand what that word is can simply hover or click on that link, and it will pop up a small window and present them the definition, and if they wish it, additional information. So we're going to show you how that works. The software is very quick. It'll read a 2-page document and process it in about 9/10 of a second. So it is very fast. The speed is directly related to the servers. Right now, we are working in a Microsoft development architecture. So we are not paying for that. It's a gift of Microsoft. But on the other hand, it steals clock cycles. So it's not as if we have our own server. The program will run a lot faster once we're in a fee-for-service environment.
So again, we're not trying to deliver a 30-page treatise on each medical diagnosis. The goal is for the doc who's right in front of you to be able to read this information in 30 seconds or less. You can call it sound bites, you can call it the crib notes of medicine. And in fact, once we get going, we'd like to be able to hyperlink to additional information. But for now, this is what we're trying to sell. So every term that we put in there, and we have about 1,300 terms right now in the dictionary. Every term is going to be defined. So Houligan's disease would be defined. And by the way, that's the green nose, red ears, and purple tongue. If there's known causes or risk factors, like a risk factor with Zika virus, we're going to put that in. We'll aid in establishing a diagnosis so that person who went on the rafting trip, I kind of knew she had schistosomiasis, but I don't know how to diagnose it. You know, maybe I've seen about 5 cases in my career. So it's in there. It's in there. It tells you how to get that diagnosis. And when we started getting these specialists to write for us, these prominent professors, they all said, well, what about medications? So we're putting in medications, but we're putting in, I feel almost like we're cheating because we're not putting in everything. You've all seen the PDO, right? 10 pages on each drug, in tiny little print. You know, we're cheating. We're only putting in the most relevant stuff. We're gonna have disclaimers all over the place. We're not replacing the doctor. We're just empowering the doctor. Next slide. So my 55-year-old Karen, who had a Cynophilus esophagitis, this is what happened. This is the report I got from the gastroenterologist. The pathology says she has a Cynophilus esophagitis. I don't know what it is. And even more importantly, What's more important is they should know what it is because I gotta make sure the gastroenterologist knows what it is. Because guess what? Esophagitis. You don't treat it with Nexium or Omeprazole. This stuff, you have to find a food allergy. So after we generate these cascades, now I know that. Next slide. So we want to get smart. Next slide.
Jay?
No, you go.
Okay. All right, so I think at this point, IMIP has been able to write a piece of software that accomplishes the goal that Richard was looking at, but now there are next steps, and that's why, you know, when we're looking to improve on this, it's going to take some money to improve on the next steps. So, for example, a patient comes into your office, although HHS has been saying that there's not going to be any more paper, well, that's not true. There's going to be paper in medicine for the foreseeable future. And so you need to have some ability to do optical character recognition, so you can turn a piece of paper into an electronic document. So that's one of our next steps. We also want to expand the number of terms that we have in the library. There's really no limit to how large our library can become, because one of the things we did is to go to Elasticsearch, which is a newer ability to search, and it's extremely fast. And it works best on huge databases. So the bigger our database gets, the more efficient it will become. And so we can have an enormous library. We can have not just medical terms in there, we can have nursing terms, you can put engineering terms in there, and you can really expand this program enormously. We want to improve our graphics, both on our website and on the program. Obviously, that's sort of from a functional standpoint, it's more aesthetic. We want to expand the written document that we have, and we would like to leverage the federal guidelines for healthcare. The federal guidelines have pushed physicians and hospitals to improve the interoperability. So if one hospital is running Epic as a medical record and another hospital is running Cerner, patient who goes back and forth between those two hospitals, you need to be able to get the medical records from 2 or more hospitals. And so the federal government wants that better interoperability, and we're hoping to leverage this so that we can hook directly to the electronic medical record as well. So now it's not just the physician looking at documents that are being sent to them, but they could actually log in, read the patient's medical record, and not have to go to the library to figure out what this says. Our document would automatically hyperlink that record.
So when we created this database, we decided to create it in a way that it would be circular. So, you know, not only you have to look up not only can you look up a diagnosis, but you can look up a sign or a symptom. So this will be left for a little bit later, but let's say somebody comes in with something unusual, like a green tongue and red ears, a purple nose, something that's unusual, we can load that in and it will go backwards and find the diagnosis. So that's what this slide represents. No, so Alan, you show the product.
Show the product?
Yep.
Okay, I'll try. So right now the product is web-based. It's based on a browser. So we previously had gone through the development. We had a freestanding Microsoft application, but nobody is doing that anymore. So everything is being run in the cloud, and this runs in the cloud as well.
Let me interject. The reason we did that was that every major EMR at the time was based off of a Microsoft operating system, except for one, which was Siemens.
So we decided to go browser-based, which means that the ability to get to our software is now universal. You could do it whether you're using a Mac or a PC or an Android phone or an iPhone. It doesn't matter. So to the end user, it's completely transparent. We had the idea of doing this as a subscription service. And so you put in your username and your password and log in. And it asks you to upload a document. So what I'd like to do is we now have the ability to read both PDFs, which is the single data file, and any of the Microsoft Word formats like Doc or Docs or RTFs. And so it will take this document and return it back to the physician in the format that it was sent in. So this is a letter, and this is the way it would appear if it had a picture on it, if it had a signature on it. All of that would be brought back down. Documents would look exactly as it had before. The only difference is that these yellow highlighted words appear. And so most people, they know what a fracture is, but they don't know what a Salter 3 fracture is. And so if you hover on this, it would allow the user to go down here and they can spool down and get the definition, which is really the primary purpose of the software, or if they wanted sort of a thumbnail guide in terms of treatments, symptoms, any little pearls that you might want to know about it, or any additional facts, how would you make the diagnosis? All of this can now be embedded through this hyperlink. Okay, and you could do that for any of these terms. And so this is, number one, it's a lot faster than trying to look this up. And number two, the information was written by an expert in that area. So it is accurate. What?
Physicians, not residents. We were working with Scientific American for a while, and they were using residents and fellows for their stuff. That's why their stuff is longer. Yeah. They don't have the experience to write stuff that's relevant.
So this is a Microsoft Docs file, and it's the same letter before it was turned into a PDF. Time to go. Interesting. And just to show you, you can get exactly the same results, and you can, just by hovering, get all of that information back. So this is the value in this software. It's applicable not just to medicine, but it could be rolled out to a learning aid in the school systems. It could be applicable to any of the scientific disciplines, chemistry, engineering, etc. So I personally think this has got great applicability. Okay, Rich.
Just show quickly the dictionary editing and
Yeah.
search. So if you don't want to,
You want me to do the search?
you go to the search.
So one of the things that we could do is, the flip side of this is we are obviously building a database in the background that includes all of the information that we see. In addition, there are things like synonyms, looks alike, and so here I can put in OI, which as an orthopedic surgeon I can click on, and this tells me this is osteogenesis imperfecta. It has the staging, the symptoms, the cause. So I can use this as a more detailed tool if I don't want to use it just to highlight terms. Okay, what is
What's known as brittle bone disease.
Right.
Show the synonyms that have the scroll down. So the synonyms, aka brittle bone disease, OR, Go to, put in TAVR just in front of it.
What?
TAVR, T-A-V-R. So TAVR is a relatively new procedure. Then click on TAVR. If you go down to the synonym, so that one it is, you have to fix that. But that's a trans catheter aortic valve replacement. Now go to editor. You want to tell them how that's done?
So in the editing mode, we only want people who are expert in their field. So in order to get into the editor, you need to specify what your discipline is. And you can go back, I'm going to put in OI since I did that one. And you then have all of the different pieces that go into what that term is. So I'm just going to click on expand all just to save time. And you have the ability to add to it. And then you can save that. You can, anytime you make a change, this goes to an editor, and it's edited both for content, and it's edited to make sure that it conforms with the format of how we're producing information.
Would you append it to a medical?
Yes, absolutely. The difference is that we have very high quality control, unlike a Wikipedia. It's supposed to be quality control, but some things are not.
But it's a crowd.
Yes.
It's a crowd of people that
So we have our specialist professors who write it, then it goes to primary care editors, and it can go back to the writer, and then the last piece is the lay medical editor. You know, just make sure everything's consistent. And the professors are also going to be paid to maintain their cascades, we call them cascades, so that they're up to date. Why don't we take a break, Jay? Why don't Jay Zaslow is a family physician, and he uses a medical encyclopedia called Up to Date, which, by the way, sells 850,000 licenses a year at an undiscounted price of $600 a license. So you can figure out the number on that. Jay, you want to do it?
Sure. So I'm a family physician, and I got good jobs a year ago at a holiday party, and we just talking about our professional interests. And he started asking me about my background, and I was so forward. I undergraduate in med school at Brown. Family medicine residency at UCSF, and a master's in public health at Harvard. Worked in academic medicine. I worked in urgent care, so worked in private practice in California. Now, a solo practice for 10 years in Brewster, and at that same site now, I work with Federal Public Health Center, working with families. And so, I'm originally just hearing that phenomenal background, 20 years in primary care, and I'll asked if I had any free time to help him with this project, so for some reason I said I did, but just to get involved, because it sounded so great. So, so let me give you a kind of a concrete view. So imagine I'm going through my day, and I have another patient, a 55-year-old gentleman who's got hypertension, diabetes, and asthma, but it's coming in today for back pain, at least that's what it says, but you never know in primary care, anything's safe. The patient could have one of their old problems or a new problem. So I have to read through notes, read the last note, read through recent labs, look at preventive measures that are due for this gentleman. And I'm getting 15 minutes for this. That's typical, 13 minutes average for primary care. And so this gentleman having had diabetes, I recently sent him to an ophthalmologist. The ophthalmologist consult note is there, it's scanned into my medical record, but the previous thing I see he has diffuse corneal dystrophy. Okay, that's my turn. So I kind of scratched my head for a second, so typical family physician, I'm seeing 4,000 patients a year, years 8,000 patients. I see a lot of hypertension, a lot of diabetes, a lot of asthma, a lot of back pain. And I see a lot of things from dystrophy. So I'm going to look it up. So I'm a big fan of Uptake, actually, and I paid for it myself when I was a private practice. Now my group pays for it for me. I do about 1,000 searches a year because I can it's tracked on the website because I get continuing education credit. But it is far from perfect. So I recently ran this search again during the time how it did take me almost 2 minutes. Not a lot, right? But on a 15-minute visit, that's about 14% of the total time allotted for this visit. And this is not even the patient's agenda, right? I'm just checking out on things. So about 2 minutes, I scan through a couple of articles, but I don't find an article. It just gives me a simple quick definition of what I need to know about Fuchs' corneal dystrophy. It's there in eye diseases and kidney disorders, amyloid diseases and genetic disorders. It's in laser surgery for the eye. So it pops up in various places, but it's nowhere really nice. So as you're hearing, the point of this is primary care, while it's tremendously rewarding, is hugely challenging because of the greatest school, because of evolution of medicine, because of changing terminology too. So I went to med school 20 years ago. Things were classified in different ways, things change. So this tool really has a tremendous potential because you really fit into the workflow. And imagine now I'm sitting down getting ready to see that patient, and all I do is hover my cursor over the term that's highlighted, and that pops this couple of paragraphs, which is really all I need to know because the other issues are even more important for this gentleman. But I can walk into the room now feeling a lot more confident. And as Rich said, very often in primary care, what we're doing is translate from specialists. The patient already saw the specialist, but they left without really understanding it. Again, there was too much terminology, and so they really rely on us to translate.
Let's go to the next slide. Just about done. The last part is just what I call the excitement part. So we have 1,300 terms in the dictionary. We have 400 to 500 cascades finished. I received an additional 20 tonight, and from a hematologist, John Nelson, who's a fellow. John, do you know John Nelson? John Robbins? No, he's not here. He sent me 10 completed cascades on. He's a clotting expert. Yeah, and I also received another 10 from George Florakis, who's a full professor of ophthalmology at Columbia and certainly knows what Fuchs' corneal dystrophy is. Okay, we got it. So go to the next slide. So here's, and this list is ever increasing, but our goal now is to try to find specialists around the country. We don't want this just to be a local project. And the other thing we want to do, evidence-based integrated medicine and evidence-based herbal medicine and evidence-based nutrition, diets, things like that, because that comes up all the time when you're a primary care physician. Sure. Well, that's very important to us. So as I said, we started working with Scientific American to obtain content, and they were talking about the bottom line, and which is important, very important, but they were having fellows write their stuff, and again, the fellows don't have any experience, but our people, as I was telling you before, David Spielvogel, who is an investor, basically is the chairman of cardiothoracic surgery at Westchester County Medical Center, and he does heart transplants. and he's writing for us. And Arno Hausman is a urologist and trained at Yale, and he takes care of a lot of important people. George Florakis is a full professor at Columbia. Mark Heaney is head of leukemia. He was head of leukemia at Sloan Kettering. Columbia just snatched him. So now he's head of leukemia at Columbia. Richard Kay, they're all Columbia cardiologists. So we don't want to make this inbred. The next step is to go out. I want to go after Dan Kirschenbaum, who's an expert on weight. He's at Northwestern. I may even want to go try to track down Andrew Weil, who does evidence-based integrative medicine. But that's our goal. And since we're boiling this down for the dumb family practitioner, or the internist, or the pediatrician, we also want to boil it down for the lay public. So why not create a product for the lay person? And that would not take a lot of effort to produce that. More step. Okay, this is my last slide, and then we're going to turn it over to Lisa Manueli. But this is what we want to do. We think we can do this now. So we have Fibonacci. We also want to offer CME credits. Alan mentioned that this can be extrapolated for other fields, not just medicine. It could be for law. Fire Interactive, it's very important that when our customers get on our site that they can interact with us and even possibly change what we're writing. We're going to produce textbooks, but small ones, and again, products for the public.
Rich, can I ask that there's a whole other market here that I physician extenders that they're using all over the place now, practitioners, PAs. Is this something that's appropriate for them, or when they come across Glucagon disease, do they go find the doctor?
No, it would be very appropriate for the nurse practitioner. It may not be appropriate for the nurse, but it would be appropriate for the nurse. I've worked many times and many years for nurse practitioners and PAs.
It would actually say more so because the demographic trend in primary care is that there are not enough physicians. There's a growing patient population, so there are many more good-level providers, physicians, assistants, and nurse practitioners, and they do not have the same skill, they do not have the same background, and so they're even more reliant on.
No, I get that, but would it be appropriate? I mean, would you want, if it was a nurse practitioner working for you, would you want that person to bring on your product?
A person at that level of training is reading the same things that physicians are reading.
Okay, it would be appropriate.
It would be appropriate, but we have to be careful how we release it. We're going to have some focus groups, and I want to understand how MDs would appreciate rolling out this product for the physician extenders.
I think you have to remember the SQL base that's behind this does get role specific. So technically, we could make this program look different for a nurse than it does for a PA or a physician. So as long as we have the roles in the SQL base, we can tailor it, to meet the need that Rich said.
That's how I can see rolling it out. There are 100,000 primary physicians in the United States, and 100,000.
There are about 500,000 physicians, primary care physicians, and another 250,000. I just looked this up for another.
I looked this up.
Yeah, another 250,000. You can imagine.
That's a large number.
Yeah, you can have a lot of other institutions.
On that note, we're going to go to Lisa, because she's going to do it money.
So what I'd like first to do was yes, for So Richard and I began to speak about the product, which was a concept, as opposed to having the concept that it is today. And I have watched it grow from an idea to something that became a physical piece of software with Alan's help. So the team has been very, very tight-knit in terms of how it has integrated itself and having physicians writing for physicians. Even these physicians writing for physicians makes the difference in the response that Jay had with that, say, I get this, I understand cost savings in terms of man hours, in terms of patient care. I can see an application across an entire university hospital that would say, if we could save 20 man hours a month of our physicians' times, how much more profitable would it be? So it becomes a cost savings tool as well, which is, we haven't touched on that to the point. And so, to go into where we are with the company, I'd like to speak to what is this company made of? What it began, and in its very nascent stage, it was a thought process. And over the last 3 years, it has accumulated a combination of different types of intellectual property that give it its value. Foremost is its patents, its technology, which is what we're looking at. And lastly, it's all of the physician content. And I can't underscore enough the value of this physician content. It's being written by physicians for physicians. So the caliber of what we're dealing with here is extremely high. It's not an encyclopedia written by the staff. It's an encyclopedia written by a doctor for other doctors. So where are we today? What is the opportunity? That's the Richard asked me to share with everyone. What is the opportunity? Over the last 2.5 years, the funding for IMIT has come completely from Richard's family. And in the context of raising money for any type of appeal, friends and family have always, they even perceive the round that we're going to speak about now. A round is just another round of financing. So your family believes in you and they fund you with whatever they can think they can give to you at that time. So on a shoestring budget, I have to give these gentlemen credit for what they've been able to do with very, very little funds, and to create the type of product that you've seen today that is functional. It's not finished, but it's functional. You've seen exactly what it will be when it rolls out the other side with more content that's underneath it. So where IMIT is today, IMIT is the company, Fibonacci's product of IMIT, and there will be another product that will be aimed at the population like WebMD is. As Alan had said, once the rule book is set in terms of who the audience is that this product is speaking to, it doesn't have to speak to a urologist. It can speak to Lisa Manuel, and I want to know why I have gastritis. And I can buy that by subscription. But that product falls into the actual process 4 years from now. That's something that is not on the front end of the burner, but it's factored into the sheets that I'd like to go over with all of you. I've given everyone a folder, but I'd like to speak it to you while we're looking at it. So what is this about today is Richard needs to raise 3 more rounds of capital. Today he's raised about $200,000, and that has morphed into the technology that we see today, the value of the patents that the gentlemen here have created for him. We have our patent attorneys here today, and the physician content. So the money became intellectual property. It's important to understand this because money is money, but once you deploy money and create something with it, suddenly it has a multiple of value because it's not just cash sitting in the bank. It's now something that product has been made from. We've illustrated the products today. In the next 3 rounds of capital, tonight we're going to talk about what we call Series Preferred A. Richard would like to raise $500,000 per round. And it addresses the next 6 years within what is the shortfall, the years that we have a shortfall, and the years that we will start making money. So in the very early days of funding this type of a business, we would engage and pledge money in the firm in the form of a preferred stock, which is what the offering is today. And that preferred stock pays a dividend interest of 4%. And I will take you through the charts. I would just like you to listen to what I'm saying first. So for every $20,000 that is pledged in preferred stock, you will receive 4% annual dividend on that as one stream of income. The other two streams of income that Rich would like everyone to have is participation in the sales, the gross sales at the top level, and participation in the net revenue at the bottom level.
So our investors will participate every time we sell a book or every time we sell a license, the investor gets a small percentage of it.
Exactly. So today's valuation, when we look at the value of what the intellectual property is today, which is the content that the firm holds, is not what you are invested in. That is what people who were the family invested in originally. They created today's intellectual property that has a valuation. What we're looking at is selling forward valuation today, and we're valuing that forward valuation based upon what the company's spend will be within the next 18 months, which comes out to just under $600,000 as we're raising capital with a market multiple. It's something that you value stocks at or a company at of 14 times. So we're valuing the company that we're asking you to invest in, because you're investing for the future, you're not investing for today, at $8 million. So that we can make that happen within just under 2 years based upon the metric, which I'll take you through. So every $20,000 of an investment into this next $500,000 round, roughly 0.25%. So if you would like to look at these sheets, because I'd like to take your questions as we're going through, because people who don't understand it, I'd rather do it while it's in through their heads. So this first sheet that has the red and the green on it, if you just look at the red and the green markers, we're showing you where the firm's cash flow negative, and that cash flow negative position ends with May 31st, 2020, which is the fourth line down under its year number 3. As we go into year number 4, which ends in May 2021, the firm becomes cash flow positive. This is a very normal side of the structure for a deal like this. I personally, with my husband, invested in several of these where you are believing in the concept, you're in very, very early, and you're saying, I'm going to support you. And no one is taking a $500,000 investment in this. We're trying to raise it in small tranches so that people can participate for $20,000 or multiple of $20,000. So by the time we get to the post-launch in year 6, according to all the metrics that I've worked through with Richard and Alan, if you go to the bottom of the page, the very bottom under year 6, which is where the green is, we will have a cumulative profit of just under $11 million and sales in that year of $10 million net. That would be our net revenue. So what I'm asking all of you to look at is the $20,000 invested today at an $8 million valuation, because we are putting a multiple, obviously, on $575,000 spend that became intellectual property that creates the $8 million valuation. In 6 years, we anticipate that that $8 million valuation will be a $100 million valuation because of the value, again, of the $10 million that we will have earned in year 6 and accumulated net profit in very, very modest 10 times the bottom line. So the $8 million now is not the valuation anymore, it's a $100 million valuation. So your 0.25% at $20,000 is actually now worth $200,000. That's the opportunity. And along the way, Richard proposes to pay 4% annually on the 60 preferred Series A, as well as a benefit to participate in the gross sale as well as the net sale. And this is illustrated on the second sheet. So if you go down to the second sheet, these are the cash flows that are relevant to the Series A preferred. And if we could look first to the right.
I got a question.
Yes.
The structure of C Corp, is that the structure? Is that
No, the structure is another. It may have to change to the C Corp if we take an outside corporate investor in, which is, we are anticipating that, John. We are sure within the next 18 months, if not sooner, we will have a strategic investor. And then we will have to change the corporate structure. Yes?
Sure.
Okay. So on the investor sheets, the Series A preferred top left corner, we're looking at an $8 million valuation. And if you pop to the right side where it says 4% of capital invested, it's the second section down. I'm sorry, this didn't come out in a linear fashion. Here we're illustrating that the 4% of capital invested on a $20,000 investment in year one, because it's only 6 months in the first year, will be $400. And then $800 in each subsequent year. And you see the years delineated on the left side, 2017 through 2020. And we're showing you the gross sales in 2017 at 197, 193, 2018, 487, and so on. And so you come down to the year 2022, we have a gross sales of $28,250,000. So that's what the metrics are of the company that are on the previous sheet. We transpose them so you can see them in their place. So Rich is proposing a 4% dividends on the preferred A, as well as a participation at your ownership level at 1% of gross sales. And you see that kicking in line into the year 2019, if everyone looks at the year 2019, where we have $1.3 million in sales, and $90,000 is the net sales that year, so the participation is nil in that year. But in the following year, in 2020, where we have $6.4 million in sales, our net sales are at $1,611,000, so the participation at a $20,000 level for that year would be $161. It doesn't seem like a lot of money on a yearly basis when you have a cumulative return. If you add all of these numbers up for the next 6 years, you have a bottom right-hand corner of $7,852 to be returned on a $20,000 investment, which is just short of 40% return on a $20,000 investment. So that is the actual financial opportunity for the return on your investment. The actual opportunity to participate with growth and return, we have not enumerated on the sheet because we're waiting for council to pass this for us. Richard would like to give everyone who has invested at least $20,000 the ability to roll $7,500 in year 6 when we have $100 million at least valuation back into the company at the $8 million valuation, which would create an automatic, obviously large capital gain in terms of what your $7,500 is going to be worth going forward. So it's a factor of, I think it comes to maybe to $2,200, something like $25,000 of common stock.
So you would return your investment after 6 years.
They give it back to you, you can take it, you can take $20,000 back. Or you can put $7,500 of it back into the firm.
After speaking to council, though, we decided that we might let them roll.
And it's possible they may let us roll the entire $20,000 back to the valuation of today at $8 million.
So after 6 years, you have an option. You can get your money back plus the interest you've made, or you have your interest, your $7,800 that you've taken, but you can keep that money and reinvest it.
And if you do that, and the valuation is the $100 million that you anticipate, that original $20,000 investment becomes worth $40 million in day one.
Who else would know? Had you given $20,000 back and what was that distributed?
It's preferred A, John. The preferred A has maturity date. It matures on the 6th year.
You think funds of the corporation buy the stock back? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
Or you can roll it back into the company in the form of common stock at the original valuation of $8 million, where you originally invested with $20,000.
Right, and the $800 here is just interest on the.
But those are dividend distributions, so the actual dividends are the 400 and 800 numbers.
So the 20,000 isn't earning anything, and I thought it's going to buy it back at zero.
At the end of 6 years, the 20,000 will have earned $7,852.
But when you want to cash in your preferred stock, you get 20 grand back.
And you can take it
You
back,
can get 20 grand back.
and then you walk away, you get the 20,000.
Right.
Or you can take the 20,000, reinvest it.
I understand that, but you will earn, you will additionally gotten $7,000 in checks or whatever.
Exactly, that's almost 40% paying the 60.
Right.
That comes out to about 6%. So that's a thank you from the company for believing and for funding this next leg. And we truly do believe, all of us believe, that we will attract the corporate investor. Because the type of business that we are in, this is a technology company. This is not a medical company, it is a technology company. I think all the valuations that we have put on here are beyond modest. There could be 2 and 3 times the valuations in terms of, I'm saying it could be worth $100 million in 6 years, it could be worth $300 million in 6 years, because the technology is what people are buying. As Alan has said, the technology has a broad application. Right now we're applying it to the medical field, but it can be applied to any field. Would you expand on that?
Yeah, definitely.
So the value here is the contents. Today, it's the contents, it's the licensing that we have, and patents, and all of the technology. In the future, it will far be beyond that, including all of the doctors who will become users, the hospitals that will become users. We've had these conversations with several hospitals, very, very supportive. But we have to get it out of the birthing stage, which is where it still is, into a fully functioning product. And that's going to take probably another $1.5 million. We're hoping to raise 500.
And then no additional preferred stocks will be issued to raise that money.
We don't anticipate that. We're hoping after this first 500,000 of preferred pay,
Right.
that the strategic investor will come in.
And they're going to be, their money's going to be represented in common stock, is that what you're saying, or what?
That's always determined at the time.
Right.
We would prefer that they are in common stock,
Right, so
honestly,
that's-
because all the preferred A investors are going to have an option to become common stock.
Or both, actually.
Are there any questions that we could address? No? Anything you'd like to say?
It's not something not support, I just say another meeting. I think it's great, I think it's great.
I have 2 questions actually. Where does the 4% interest come from that you were saying? In terms of investors?
It's factored into, if you go back to the original sheet here, we will have income. If you look at the.
Where's the income generated?
From sales, the license sales of image. And that will begin in year 1. That's the year of the launch. So that is just in 2017.
The other question is the strategic investor that you're contemplating aligning with. Do you have somebody in mind, or you're just hoping to bring somebody aboard?
The people that Richard and Alan have been speaking with, would you like to address that?
Just in our field, spoken to a few people. I think Alan has one in mind, and I have one in mind.
Individuals or corporations?
No,
or hospitals?
we're talking about major corporations.
You know, one of them we anticipate easily could be the firm that produces up to date today, because the product is cumbersome. And this could be a much more streamlined version of what they're doing, also written by physicians to physicians. So they would be a natural fit for us. We also have spoken with many hospitals and universities that express interest in taking larger role once we have something to show them that can actually
They have what's
function.
called accelerators. They'll actually provide a third of the money. But it's not, we're looking for the strategic partner, not just for money, but also as a strategic partner. I don't know whether I should discuss right now who are the strategic.
No, I wasn't looking at that. I was just curious.
We can have a reflection of it.
Well, it could be a pharmaceutical company, it could be a computer company, or it could be a publishing company.
And when that strategic investor comes in, what's the valuation that they come in at? Do they come in at the $8 million valuation, or do they come in at a higher?
But what current valuation would be at that time? That's not a $8 million. We believe that as you keep making money on this spreadsheet here, I'm sorry, I wanted to keep this as high level as possible, so not to get too much detail, but I'm happy to answer the question. With every passing year, the company's value is growing. As the company's value is growing, so is the multiple that we can afford to that growth. When we're looking at a multiple today of 14 times what our invested intellectual property is, which is all the money that is being raised, we could look like a tech firm. We are a tech firm. And if it sells at 17 or 22 or 35 times earnings, that's very possible. So we would not want to shortchange all of us. We're all shareholders of this company. So if we sell it to $8 million valuation, it would probably be a $40 or $50 million valuation at that point in time. And does anyone else have any other questions? No? So, anything else we should wrap up with?
Do you count on the strategic partner adding into the workforce to help build the dictionary out and help build, build the site? Not the site technically, but all the cascades.
That's a very good question. I spent the last 3 years working on that.
Yeah.
So I spent that year working with Scientific American Medicine. I spent another 6 months working with, it's a medical content company, huge company, but we just were not seeing eye to eye, So we have some ideas. I mean, there's Merck, which is one company that has the Merck manual, so they already have content. There are publishing companies that are rivals of Up to Date. Up to Date, please give me the name. What's the name of the publishing company that owns Up to Date?
Walters Kluwer.
Thank you. I can't remember that. Who's in? Walters. They're huge. Huge.
That's a very large publicly traded company.
But it was what?
Kluwer.
So if we go to McGraw Hill, which produces medical textbooks, probably getting stomped on by Walters Kluwer.
One of the problems in terms of putting content in, we are, for lack of a better analogy, we are writing the cliff notes of medicine. And so in order to produce cliff notes, you have to understand the subject matter that you're writing about. And so it's not just a matter of looking up whatever disease and putting it in there like up to date, but you actually need somebody who understands what is this problem so I can relate just the essence of that to the person who's going to read this.
Right, but you need more than a room full of people to add to the content.
Right.
Yeah.
To roll this thing out so that you will for.
I think that Rich is. And so my father-in-law is very well known hematologist, oncologist, and he writes for Up to Date. And every year, my mother-in-law tells me every year he gets a check for $8,000 or $9,000 of the articles that he's written. He's thrilled. She's thrilled. And he just thinks it's such a great way to support Frederick family. So I think that connecting with great specialists around the country, around the world, you need people who connect well. Physicians for recruit these authors. But the last, what Alan showed, the editor mode allows the physician after work at home to easily write these cascades. So now I started off editing some I'm getting the specialist documents, and I'm making sure that they're really well worded for primary care physicians. That's what I've been doing. And initially doing it on Word documents, but now I'm doing it on the web using this tool. It's nice.
So the people that are going to be adding to the cascades, the physicians that are doing this from home, how do they get paid?
They're paid on a per cascade basis, and it's different for different societies.
What we're doing is if we can get a full department, so we have Columbia Cardiology, they get a little bit of a premium because I only have to deal with one person and he makes sure the 5 cardiologists produce. So they get a little bit of a premium. They're getting paid per cascade, so per term, but they're also getting to participate a small amount in the sale of a product. So again, every time we sell a textbook or a license, they get a small piece. And I go over this with them, and you know, you start off at 1,000 licenses a year, which I think is pretty doable. You know, that may be just 3 hospitals that I have to go to convince the doctors to buy it. And eventually in year 6, we're working up to 50,000 licenses, which I think is doable because that's, you know, 10% of the primary care physicians, and if UpToDate can do what, 850,000, we should be able to do 25 or 50,000. And that adds up to some interesting money for the physician writers. So they're excited. They're excited about the product, and they're excited about their small return, like Jay said.
The other thing that's interesting from a business perspective is our cost of operation, if we have 1,000 customers, is about the same as if we have 100,000 customers. So it's not like the bigger the user group, the more our overhead, which is a very positive business.
I'm just talking about as far as inputting data and growing content. You know, you need a lot of eyes.
Yep.
We want to have 24 sections. We want to have full 24 sections. And we have a whole, you know, we have a 10-page business plan. A lot of little boxes. You'll show exactly where all this money is going.
What are you shooting to sell a license at?
Rather than me just saying it off the top of my head.
For a private,
Two things I see.
Jay, that's for a private,
Top
ones.
quality product, which I think is very, very important. Because Scientific America and some of these other people who spoke about it, are just turning out a lot of words and so forth. I mean, it's certainly good, but not a number one product. The other question I might ask is, sales of it. Do you think something like Medicare would end up paying for these products or some of these doctors because it will facilitate the physician in getting a faster diagnosis and being a more correct diagnosis and a long run, Medicare would save money on this?
Not only Medicaid, but the National Health Service in England. And we filed patents in England, Europe, Hong Kong, and the US. And Carrie, you asked me about what we're selling. The first year we would sell for $155, so we would be greatly undercutting them today. And second year $195, the third year $210. We're going to get to 6 years. It's too dark. It's $280. No, wait a minute. They renew the license every year. But every year we are creating more and more content. And they also get a small textbook.
You should figure out how to incorporate some type of other segment that would have boilerplate boilerplate applicability to physicians who want to appeal denials from insurance companies. You know, when an insurance company tells you that they're not going to authorize treatment, you know, you have to be able to,
evidence-based stuff.
you have to be able to input, you have to be able to input data from the physician's charts into something that is preconceived so that they can just plug in the facts, and that way you can shoot out as your first level of appeal.
Well,
It is, I shouldn't say anything. And non-disclosure. It is, because I'm returned honestly, constantly, all the physician friends that I have are frustrated. Their time is spent dealing with this legal bullshit, you know, rather than practicing medicine, and all their appeals are being, all their first level appeals are denied, second level appeals are denied, and then they go to arbitration, and the patient, meanwhile, is a year down the road before the patient can get a laser or get a neural for something that they need. Yeah, and in the interim, you know, as the attorney, you know, you want the physician to be able to let you just figure out what harm may done to the patient by not getting the treatment. And the physicians don't have time, no deal. Another thing you don't have time for.
let's eat, let's keep talking, okay?
Those weren't Steve's.
Yeah, you can talk here.
You know,
Thank you.